And so because I understood that, I knew that I could play the game and essentially beat the bank at the game, which is that we could escape the 25-year or 30-year or 35-year mortgage, which do it in less than 10 years.
I'm Vanessa Canby, and this is West African Wave, the series where I talk to people within West Africa and in the diaspora. And in this video, I'm interviewing Ken from the Humble Penny. Ken was born in Nigeria and moved to the UK, and he has now achieved financial freedom. He paid off his mortgage in 7 years, and he teaches us in this video how to do that for yourself and how he got to that place in his life. Because as you will hear, his beginnings in Nigeria and when he first came to the UK weren't exactly where he is now in life. So I can't wait for you to hear this. Here I have Ken from the Humble Penny, and this is one of my favorite YouTube channels ever. And what I love about your channel is the fact that you have achieved what a lot of people call like financial freedom. You've managed to quit your corporate job and do your own thing. You've paid off your mortgage. You seem like very comfortable. So it would be great to hear where you came from and what got you to that place.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much. You know, my wife and I, we love your channel, and we've watched you grow, which is really fantastic as well to see what you're doing. So in terms of what's kind of got me to where I am, so I feel, Vanessa, like I'm living. It's weird to say this, but I feel like I'm living a bit of a dream in a way, because what I've realised, and this started in 2008, and then in /2009 when I met my wife. But in 2008, I started to realise that a lot of the future, a lot of what you say your future is going to be, is what it will become, and the words that you put out there about yourself is essentially what almost comes from the intangible world into the physical world. Because what that does is it starts to activate action taken in your life, and you start to optimize your life in a particular direction. Okay, so let's go back now. So I wanted to give you that almost that philosophical aspect, just so you can understand how I think about things. And then let's just go back. So I was born in Nigeria, and I grew up in Nigeria until I was 14 years old. I grew up in Lagos mainly, and life over there was very, very normal, very ordinary and fun, actually. We didn't have very much at all. But then again, I had no comparison. By that I mean, like, I didn't know what, like, I knew the UK. When I think of the UK, I think of, like, I don't know, the Queen or something. So I didn't really know much about what life was like in somewhere like the UK. So life was very ordinary. So only now when I kind of look back, I think, wow, like, I really came from a very simple life, you know, very simple. I spent a lot of my childhood barefooted, running around, building things, building kites, playing football on the street. I went to school, obviously, in Lagos up until when I was 14. And then we moved here, moved to the UK, moved here with my mum, my sisters, and my brother. My dad was already here, mapping out the great plan for the family and how we were going to, you know, kind of move over here. And life kind of started there, really. I can dive in more if you want, but that's kind of where I call it the second stage of my life. That second stage began in 1998 when we moved to the UK, so just over 20 years ago.
How you found your childhood? You said you had a lot of fun. So do you feel like that built a great foundation to sort of where you are today?
One thing that I missed a lot from my childhood was my dad moved to the UK. I missed a lot of time with my parents because my mum was always out. She's a very successful woman. Even in, like, speaking to her the other day, she's telling me how much money she was making, even like back in the 90s. And I was like, wow, I cannot believe this is how much money you were making. She was a really high-ranking officer in the immigration service in Nigeria. Anyway, she'd done very well. So a big part of what life for me has been about has really mainly been about how can I create the family life that I've always kind of desired.
The first time when you came to the UK, was it what you expected? Was it like the dream that you might have been sold?
Oh, it was so far from it, right? So, oh my God. So I'll just tell you, right? So we ended up in one room. So I'd expected, I'd moved to the UK, we'd have this really nice, detached, at least 4-bed house, and life would be amazing. I'd get to maybe even like cross the road and maybe get to Buckingham Palace, but it was very far from that. We ended up in a room, it was actually in North London, ended up there in this one room, and we stayed there for about 6 months. We'd sleep on the floor, me, my brother, and my sisters, and my mum and dad would sleep on the bed. It was after that we then moved to Walthamstow, where we then started to have what I'd call, we actually started to live in a house that didn't have other people in it. And even that was very, very difficult to get to. The whole country was a complete shock. Seeing white people for the first time, like getting on buses, that looked very different to sort of buses I'd seen in Lagos, where you'd have a ton of people in it. Just doing stuff that I'd never really done before. The weather was a shock. I had to start to learn how to speak. Although obviously Nigeria's first language there is English, but here, the speed at which you speak is different. So I started to watch TV, started to watch the BBC. I'd try and copy what people were saying because I wanted to try to figure out, how do you speak so quickly? How do you speak so that people don't figure out that you are not from this country? So really
Oh.
weird things like that, trying to almost fit in, I think is probably the best way to put it. And it was really challenging because, when you're at school, I don't know how you felt at school, but a lot of my schooling in this country, I started at year 11, was really challenging because you're coming in and it's a new education system, new class, new people, and you just trying to find some friendships. But no one really wanted to be my friend back then because people were like, yeah, this is this African guy. Why would I want to be friends with this guy who can't even communicate and who's wearing the ugliest pair of trainers? And kids, you know what kids say. So life was actually quite lonely because I didn't have people who I could say, oh, that guy or that girl is actually my friend, in that sense, because a lot of that life was about trying to fit in. But that's changed a lot now because Africa has suddenly become very, very sexy in many ways, and many people kind of want to know, they love the music, they love the culture, that sort of stuff. But back then, it was far from it. My drive and determination has come from trying to prove a lot of people wrong, trying to almost say, well, actually, I can achieve things if I operated slightly differently to everybody else.
Okay, yeah.
So,
And so how did you get to this space, which is that you've managed to quit your job and pay off your mortgage and everything that, a lot of people dream of, basically?
okay, so 2009, I met my wife, and we met. What was really critical about that was that we met at a property investing seminar, of all places,
Oh.
to meet your future life partner. So we met learning about how to invest in property, and we had a similar mindset. And I mentioned that as the critical point because what's really important when it comes to relationships and so on is that you really have two people who are on the same page. So we kicked off and said to ourselves, our stories really were quite similar, even though Mary, my wife, was born in Hackney in London. She was born to a Nigerian family who had immigrated here. So there were those parallels in we wanted a better economic outcome for ourselves, and we wanted a better life outcome. I didn't want to work till 65 and retire, all these stuff that my parents had done, and all these things. I wanted a radically different life, and so did Mary. So we set ourselves what we called our 10-year goal. Our 10-year plan was, remember at this point, we didn't have any kids or anything like that. We were like, yep, in 10 years, this is kind of what we want. We wanted, most importantly, a house with its own door. By that I mean we could walk to it and not have to climb any stairs. We just walk to it, put a key in, and open the door and go in. This was one of our big dreams, Mary and I. And so when we met, we started going out, we started to have this dream, and we started to put our money together. In 2012, we bought our first, I already had a flat, actually, bought our first home together. And that's the home that I'm making this call from right now. And this is part of our 10-year plan. We said, okay, well, in 10 years, we definitely want to be mortgage free. And I understood numbers very differently to a lot of people. So I understood how debt worked and how, compounding works. I understood that compounding works in different ways and works outside of money. Compounding actually works in time as well. For example, me running an online business, running the Humble Penny, compounding is what's got us to where we are. We can kind of go into that later. I can kind of share that perspective. So I understood debt. And so because I understood debt, I knew that I could play the game and essentially beat the bank at the game, which is that we could escape the 25-year or 30-year or 35-year mortgage. We could do it in less than 10 years. And so we started that venture. And whilst we were doing that, remember I talked about this idea of life design. But think to yourself, what do I, holistically, what's my life's vision? Like, what do I want my life to look like? What are the key elements in that ideal life? So for us, that's family life, there was property, and there was the need for income generating assets. So we started to think, okay, how do we use the money we're making today? Remember, our careers were just taking off at that point. How do we use the money we're making? I just qualified as a chartered accountant in 2008. And Mary was working in the city. So how do we use the money that we are making to start to create that life? So we started to explore different platforms, like exploring the stock market, for example, and gradually started to build up. And at the same time, exploring other joint ventures within my family. I come from a very entrepreneurial family. I'm the only one actually who had a normal job. My sisters, they all run different businesses. You can find them all on Instagram doing all amazing, really amazing things. And I was the only one who had this career path. But I knew that career path was necessary, and it was necessary whilst I was also being entrepreneurial on the side. So we were creating various businesses. We started all kinds of things, events businesses. We created beauty businesses, salons with quite a number of branches, nursery businesses. We have 3 branches now within our family unit, not just me and Mary, but with my mum and my dad and my sisters. So we started going into these various side hustles that were, in my world, were enhancing my income and net worth in various ways. But for my family was their main kind of thing. So my mum, for example, this was her main thing. And my sisters were running their own various things. So what you then had was, every year, there was no year, in fact, whenever I did a yearly audit of our lives, every year there was a key milestone. It's either we bought this property, or we started this business, or we created this asset, or we did this other thing. Every single year, these various elements of their life design were gradually starting to come together. And obviously, as you made money from different areas, you then use that money to put into different assets that eventually worked for you. So what you were really aiming for, in fact, to zoom out, was how could I outsource money making to assets? That's ultimately what we wanted to do. How could I almost eject myself such that if I stopped right now, the income would still keep coming in? Okay.
Yeah.
And so the more we created those, what I call now offline assets, because the online world for us only started in 2017, the more we created these offline assets, the more we were getting closer to our goals. And the more we're using a lot of that money to do things such as overpaying on our mortgage, all the things I've covered on that video I made, which seem to have just gone completely nuts. People seem to love that video about how we paid off our mortgage in 7 years. The more we did that, the more we felt like, wow, we now own 30% of this house. We now own 60% of this house. And it was getting closer and closer. We only paid off the mortgage in last summer. But that was a 7-year period from 2012 to 2019, which is, for us, a huge dream come true. But the significance of it, Vanessa, was not that we paid off the mortgage. Yes, that's huge. But what it did was the optionality that it introduced into our lives. Because what that did was, if you remove your housing costs from the picture, what you have really is your council tax, your electricity bills, your Wi-Fi, and your other kind of lifestyle things. And that's it. Your costs become really, really small. What that then means is they say, I perhaps don't need to work as hard in life, or I could carry on working and invest in the difference. Yeah.
So is that what you do? Do you invest the difference?
Yeah. All our, we have a very low cost base now. But now our investments are getting even more, getting even bigger, because like we've now gone into the online world where we now own digital assets. So we own the Humble Penny and the trademark related to that. We own Financial Academy and the trademark related to that. And those assets being digital is so different to the offline assets we had because they have no income cap. That's the beauty of them. The offline assets have income caps. Like the nursery business that we run, for example, one of our branches has a max of 50 children. That's it. That's all you can have. Another one has a max of 100 children. That's all you can have. That means your income's capped. But we realized in 2017 that actually the beauty of the internet and the generation, which is actually, I always think of the internet as our generational advantage, is that we could create a totally different world whereby, we could do things that we couldn't ever imagine we could do. Like I was saying to you earlier, for example, imagine if we could switch off for an entire month and go off what Mary and I and the kids plan to do, is hire a car. I've been looking up cars we can hire online and take away and go and tour the country for an entire month. But the business just runs by itself online. And I love experimenting. A lot of my life has been about proving that things can happen. So for example, when we started the Humble Penny as a blog in 2017, I was trying to prove that you could use 2 hours per day to change the world. And what I was trying to prove was that 2 hours per day compounds, just like money compounds, because I understood how compounding interest worked. So I knew that if you had 2 hours every single day, in a week you got 14 hours. And if you carried on in a year, I think it's 768 hours. Can't remember the exact number. But the point was, if you carried on like that in year 2, things would start to stack up because all your efforts would start to snowball. So because I understood that, I knew that I would eventually get to a point where I would say, oh, that job I had, well, my income from all my efforts easily replaces that. Why am I working 50 hours per week? How about if I worked 20 hours per week, but still maintained a good 6-figure income? That there was an experiment worth exploring. And this is what then led to me being able to, in April 2020, when all the craziness was happening with the pandemic and what have you, I had the option. When you have the beauty of options is that options have value. Though they exist in the background, they have a lot of value because you can choose to say, well, actually, I want this now instead of this. And because we have that optionality, and because we've been doing this live design journey for the last decade, we could afford to do that. We could afford to make that leap. So you see, everything I've been explaining to you hasn't happened. There wasn't like an exact grand plan. There was a hint of a plan, but as time passed, you built upon that plan. And but the overarching theme was one of a life design.
So amazing. When I listen to you, I'm just like, so many people would, if they had that extra money, just go and spend it on like a new car and I feel like that's how the system just like captures you in that sort of like capitalism system. You feel like you need to buy more stuff. And that's what I guess prevents some people from getting to where you are.
You see, this is so interesting what you said there. So again, this is why I think what we're doing, when I share the Humble Penny, people really connect with it. It's because I'm trying to share it in a way that people can relate to what I'm saying in very simple words. So there are 3 main, when I think about what we're doing really, there are 3 main almost overarching levers. There's your skill set, there's your tool set, and there's your mindset. Okay, what you just said there about consumerism and thinking differently and so on comes under the mindset. Okay, and over time, and this is the beauty of going on a life-changing journey, is that there are 2 things that happen. You have a journey of achievement, you're trying to achieve something, but you also have a journey of transformation. You have to become somebody else on that journey. So over the last 10 years, Mary and I have become different people. So we now live a very simplistic life, very, very simple. Like I pick, for example, see this watch I'm wearing. I don't think I spend more than £50 on it. But in my old world, I'd want to wear a watch that was maybe £3,000 or £5,000. And that's because I was trying to be somebody else. I didn't truly understand who I was and what value I brought to the world and what power I possessed. Yeah. So that meant that I then, the reflection, what people saw physically of me was something that manifested because I wasn't being truly who I was. Yeah. So that meant that all my money and anything that was coming in was disappearing into different places. But over time, the more you, and this is what's so interesting about this journey of money, people think about money and think about the mechanics of money, investing, saving, and so on. There's a good, or what ranks way above all that, is actually you understanding who you are and where you've come from, which is why we love what you're doing. And it's kind of like, when I watch that stuff, I'm like, okay, I get it. And if only she could see it from the way I see it, which is I connect what you're doing with ultimately what starts to happen in your life, which is if you understand who you are, then the outward result is that your life becomes shaped in a totally different way. And that's what we've seen in the last 10 years. We've been able to make decisions because we knew why we were making decisions, not because the decisions we were making would make us look a particular way to other people. Yeah, it was really about us and us understanding what mattered to us the most. And the words I use to describe this now is radical authenticity. Okay? So it's this idea of you choosing to do life in your own exact way, irrespective of what anybody thinks about it. Because it's actually what, in fact, when I see anyone watching this right now, right, I would say to you, if there's anything you take away from this video, if you remember the words radical authenticity, it's this idea of being completely yourself, irrespective of whether people agree with you or not. Yeah, this is what's helping us today. Like we run the Humble Penny, you run your channel, vanessakanbiyt. It's the thing that's helping us stand out. It's the radical authenticity, knowing that you have people who will agree with you and those who don't. And it kind of doesn't really matter because like what matters is what you really think about yourself and where you think you're trying to get to. So this connects really well with your life design, because if you don't understand who you are, there is absolutely no way you can create a life's vision. It's impossible. How can you? Because you don't know who you are. Do you get the point?
No, it's so true, and it's such a good message for people. And it can be difficult though. I think it takes time to get to that point of like really knowing what you want, who you are, all these things. I feel like you need to sit down and really think about it.
You just said something interesting. You just said you need to sit down. That's exactly where it begins. I'll tell you why. Because you see, these things, our greatest life distractions come from these things, these smartphones. They're great. They're great. They're really great. And they help me a lot, to promote my message. but what they also do is that they distract us a lot, and they stop us from having a simple conversation. And what you find is that life's biggest questions and life's simplest questions, which are the more important questions, actually happen when we sit down like we're sitting down, Vanessa, and say, hey, let's have a cup of tea. Let's just have a chat. Let's have a chat. So many people are not talking. Husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, partners are not talking, are not dreaming. Like I speak to my wife, Mary, and we go for walks daily. And when we go for those walks are really walks for us to just talk and just dream. So I think the more we do that, the more these things start to happen, getting to know who you are and so on.
If you could give people 5 top tips, I feel like we've actually learned so much from what you've said already, but if you had 5 top tips, like quite quick points to getting to that mindset of where you're at, being able to be financially free and be able to stop working and still make money, what are those tips that you would give?
Okay. So there's so many things I could talk about, but I'll try and do them a bit randomly as they come to me. Okay. The first is you have to become somebody who loves personal development. So I love learning. I read a lot of books. Every room in this house is covered in books. So become somebody who reads and who learns. So you can learn in different ways. It could be ebooks, it could be audiobooks, it could be physical books, it could be you attending a conference, it could be you getting some coaching, stuff like that. Okay. I love that. These are things that I do. I even pay people today to coach me on different things. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is the point I covered earlier. So understand where you are right now financially. Okay. Where exactly are you right now? Okay. And I talk about this idea of simply working out your net worth, your financial net worth. Many people think the net worth is a calculation that only rich people calculate. Okay. Anyone can calculate this. Just grab a sheet of A4, write down all your assets, if you've got any, on the left-hand side, and all your liabilities on the right-hand side, sum them all and deduct your liabilities from your assets. You have your net worth. The reason that's important is because that tells you where you are on the money journey, because you might not know this, but you are on somewhere on the step ahead, and financial independence is a stage on the money journey. So if you know where you are, next point is to figure out how much money is enough for you. That's my third point. Okay. When I ask people that question, many people say, I want millions. I'm like, what do you mean you want millions? Like, millions is what you learn about on Instagram. How much exactly do you want? Forget what people are saying. Forget what those celebrities are saying. How much do you need in your life? And a simple way of working this out is to say to yourself, do a proxy of taking your current expenses. Let's say you spend £2,000 a month, multiply that by 12, it's 24K, and multiply that by 25, that's £600,000. So do the same for yourself. So your expense times 12 times 25, okay? That gives you an idea of what sort of number you need for you to have a level of financial freedom in your life. Okay, that's a third point. The fourth point then is for you to then start to ask yourself, what are the different levers that are available to help me move from where I am, which is the second point we worked out, to where I'm trying to get to? What are the different options? Yeah, different options include, you might aim to try and pay off your mortgage to reduce your expenses and therefore have life options. That could be one of them. You might pursue property investing as a way to generate passive income in order to replace your monthly expenses. That's one option. You could pursue entrepreneurship. It could be an offline business or an online business, such that, again, you are trying to generate enough income to exceed your expenses, because that's when you become financially independent. You could have lifestyle optimization, where you are saying to yourself, oh my God, my life's too expensive. How do I cut down my life to a level where, you know, I can therefore get those income coming from my assets to exceed my expenses? The fifth could be career optimization. You can say to yourself, well, actually, one of my levers could be that I advance in my career and I keep going up, just like I did. Went from a qualified accountant all the way to chief financial officer, making a comfortable six-figure income and, you know, putting a lot of that to investments. So notice I'm just giving you 5 levers there. You can then say to yourself, which of those 5 levers relates to me? Could I pick 2? Could I pick 3? And if I've now picked those, what do I need to do next to start to take a step forward? Okay, so this whole thing will take you quite some while to do, but you will immediately start to find that if you've made those decisions, where it will lead you now will be, how do I start to keep myself accountable? I think that's point 4 or 5, I can't remember where I'm on now. To hang around with other people who are doing what you want to do. We call them, in our world, in our community, we call them dream makers. The people who are of the same mindset, who have the same journey. Because if you look around you, a lot of your friends and family will not be interested in what you're trying to achieve. That's okay. What you need to do is find other people, call them your Avengers team, the people who are really interested in making dreams really come true. They're not just yabbing about it, but they're actually doing stuff. The reason you want those people is because they will keep you accountable, and they will teach you new things, and they will motivate you and inspire you to really take those steps every single day. Okay, so you find those people, and then gradually you now need to then start to automate things in your life. So for example, investing, for example, you know, if you're investing money, as one of those levers I mentioned earlier, if you invest in money, you want to start to automate it. Because there will be a certain amount you need to invest each single day, each single month, sorry, at a particular rate of return to help you over a particular period of time to get to where you want to get to. Okay, this is covering a lot very quickly, but my point is you need to automate your investing because you can't go, today I feel like investing, I would invest. Tomorrow I don't feel like investing, I will not invest. What you need to do is remove the emotion from money and literally say, right, I'm investing £200 per month, that's it. And my goal will be to increase that every 3 months. And if you do that, the more you do that, the more you start to see your net worth, that thing we worked out at the beginning, start to grow. Okay, so there's so much more I could cover, but I'd recommend if you haven't been to our channel, for example, check it out. Vanessa mentioned it at the beginning.
Yeah, so that is actually a good point. I mean, thanks so much for all those pieces of advice. I feel like they're so helpful. And if people want to learn more about you, you have your YouTube channel where people can find videos where you describe things in much more detail.
Yes.
But also, so that's free content. But you've also got your website and your academy. If you could talk a little bit about those as well.
Yeah, so we run thehumblepenny.com, which is our blog. So you can go there. We have a world of information on different things: investing, making money, side hustles, savings, managing debt, and so on, relationships. Talk about a lot of things. So it's all free on the blog platform. We also then, parallel to that, run Financial Joy Academy at financialjoyacademy.com, which is our membership area for the people we call our dream makers. So the people who read our blog, we call them our fearless dreamers. And the people who are on our membership, we call our dream makers, because they've gone from just thinking about the idea to actually now taking the steps. So feel free to check out financialjoyacademy.com as well if it's of any interest to you. Oh, and then you can find us on Instagram at the Humble Penny.
Thanks so much for watching this video, and don't forget to check out The Humble Penny. I'll put the link in the description below. And also please do subscribe to my channel to help me grow this channel so that I continue to make these videos for you. Thanks so much. See you later.